Well, good morning and happy Friday to you. Hey, I hope you have had a good week. Hopefully, you've got to do a little bit of review this week, and you feel good about things. And I don't want to say I hope you've gotten caught up because there is no getting caught up. You are where you are, so don't feel like you have to be at chapter 2, verse 1 on Monday. You could be at chapter 1, verse 15, and you're caught up because that's your pace. So feel no pressure to be where I am on these series of videos. But for whatever you have learned, I hope this has been a good week for you to refresh and review those verses. And oftentimes when you give yourself a chance to relax and let the brain rest, that's when some of these verses will really begin to sort of click, sort of on the offbeat a little bit. So I hope that has been the case for you this week. I did want to follow up on the video I did earlier this week about the journey method. And I know that may not be for all of you, but for those of you who are interested, I want to give you a very practical example of how I would use the journey method. This would be a very easy example, and that would be chapter 1, verse 27. That was a longer verse. I know some of you mentioned had some trouble with that one, and I want to show you how I think this method can make a verse like that very, very simple. But if you did watch the last video, you recall the journey method is where you just you draw a journey, whether it be going out on a drive, heading towards your workplace, taking a trip. It could be at Disney World, different locations at Disney World. Whatever, you can make a journey however you like. The journey I use most often will normally be in my home. I've got actually two different journeys, two different paths in my home that I use mainly, so I think I'll talk about one of those in a second. But just to show you how powerful this is. If you watched on earlier this week on Monday, I believe it was, I showed you how you can memorize the largest continent, all the continents from largest to smallest or smallest to largest. And I bet you know it. The largest continent, okay? Remember our journey. What did I do? I went out and got in my car. You got in your car, and there was someone sitting in your car, right? Well, for me, it was a guy named Shin Lim. So I know that the largest continent is Asia because he is Asian. And for you, it may have been someone else. Then what did you do? Then you went down to the end of your driveway, and there was your mailbox. And what's up with your mailbox? There was something going on. Oh, that's right. There was a big elephant there. The elephant was sitting there smashing your mailbox or other animals around. That reminds you that the second largest continent is Africa. Well, then I left from there, went on my way to work, and stopped at the gas station. And at the gas station, remember there was that big American flag, which reminded me of what? North America. Then I went to Starbucks, got my coffee, some Colombian coffee, South America. I went to the office, the park, in my parking spot, there was this big anthill. Oh, that's right, Antarctica. Went to the lobby, and there was Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. That reminded me of Europe. Went to my office, and there was the Australian golfer putting in my office. And that reminds me, the seventh is Australia. So how did you do? Did those come back to you pretty easily? You may have to refresh once or twice, but eventually that story will stick, and you'll never forget it. And that's how it can be applied to Bible memory as well. In fact, to show you how seriously I take this, I use this a lot. I just got a book this week. Has nothing to do with Bible memory, but it's called the Memory Arts, and I'm using it for other applications. But you can see this is done by some people who do these graphic novels, and they're using that. They actually use the term memory palace, but they draw all these. It's kind of hard to see here, but they're drawing all these different palaces and locations for different numbers, and using it in a different application than we use for the Bible. But it is something that works, and so I hope you give it a try. Let me show you how you can actually apply this technique to learn verse 27. That's a verse I know many of us struggle with. It's probably one of the longer verses in the entire book of Philippians. It begins, "Only let your manner of life be worthy of the gospel of Christ." I don't use anything there to remember that because for me that's pretty easy. That's something that we say a lot, and I pray that a lot. I say that to myself a lot, and so that one, I don't think you need a memory device for that. Only let your manner of life be worthy of the gospel of Christ. But the rest of the verse is where it can get tricky. So here is a memory palace that I would use, or a journey that I would use for this, because the reason the journey would work here is because you have a list of different items along the way. And that's where the journey method works, because it helps you keep the right order of a list that you're trying to memorize. So I'm going to go to my bedroom, and in my bedroom, there is a big eyeball sitting on my bed, and there's a cloud over it, and a storm's coming down. So, okay, that's the first part of my journey. Why do I use that? Well, because it says, so whether I come and see you or am absent. Okay, I need something to jog my memory. So I go to my bedroom, I see a big cloud in the sky with rain coming down. That I think of weather. Well, it says, so that whether I come and see you. I was always having trouble with that word weather for some reason. So I just used a word, it sounds like that, the word weather. And so whether I come, and so it's coming down, the rain's coming down on an eyeball. So whether I come and see you or am absent. I don't need to have anything for am absent, because I'll remember that. If I get the see you part, I'll remember that. That just kind of flows. Well, then I leave my bedroom and I go into the bathroom, and there once again in the big tub, I go to the tub, and there's a big giant ear. A big ear just in my tub, which is kind of strange, a very strange image. So whether I come and see you or I'm absent, I may hear of you. Okay, so that reminds me of hear. So that's the first one in the sequence. So I hear of you, and then I go to the shower, and in the shower there is once again this like a ghost in my shower, which reminds me of the Spirit. So that you are standing firm in one spirit. I go to my closet, and in my closet another body part, a big old brain, or maybe you have a bunch of little tiny brains, whatever it works best for you. For this image, I would use one big brain. So it says, so that would remind me of with one mind. And then I go into my the area where I brush my teeth, and there I will see a bunch of these little plastic army men that we used to play with as kids, and I'll have them lined up so they're marching side by side. So that reminds me of striving side by side. And then I go to where the toilet area is, and there's a big bunch of smoke coming out of there. That for me, that makes me think of fog. And that's the little letters I use for the faith of the gospel. Striving side by side for the faith of the gospel. Now that ends verse 27. But if I wanted to carry this on into 28, I would then go into my kitchen. And in my kitchen, I'm going to see my little, I got these little dogs, little Shih Tzus. And one of my little Shih Tzus, she gets really nervous in a storm. And so she's sitting there and she's shaking, she's shivering. So I see her sitting there on the floor. And so that reminds me that verse 28 begins, and not frightened. Because she's frightened, but I don't need to have the word for not, because I know what what the verse is. I just need that little image of frightened to kind of help me get going. So not frightened in anything by your opponents. And then as I leave my kitchen and go into the living room, I see, those little signs we have at our church that we use in the hallway to point like different directions. I see one of those signs there, but the sign itself is made out of glass. And in these red words are the words destruction. So I see this clear sign. So this is a clear sign to them of their destruction. And that's all I need to get me through the rest of the verse. I don't need anything but of your salvation, and that from God. You could put some other steps in the journey if you like, but for me, that's just going to flow. Once I get this is a clear sign to them of their destruction, then that's all I need. That gets me through the rest of the verse. And just do that. If you do that 2, 3, 4, 5 times, next thing you know, that story, as crazy as it is, it's like you can't forget it. It makes it so much simpler, especially keeping these things in order. Now that's the story that works for me and the way my brain thinks. So you just need to, maybe use some ideas I gave you there, but kind of come up with your own story, your own journey. And that will make it stick for you. But anyway, I know that's strange, but I do hope it's helpful for you. It will be very helpful. The reason I wanted to show that now is because next week when we get into Philippians 2, verse 1 and 2 is where I'll show you how to use the journey method again, because it'll be very helpful. I think even more helpful there. Because there's quite a list there of items, and it was very difficult for me to get them in the correct order. But the journey method made that much simpler. Well, that's it for today. You guys are doing great. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I really do. It's Memorial Day weekend, and be safe out there. God bless, and we'll see you on Monday.